reflection was really a lot about figuring out what works best for them, but also what works best for me. Before you start with teaching and managing, you need to build relationships with them.
Welcome to Key Connections for Educators. I'm Nate Key.
And I'm Hannah Knecht.
I got my start in corporate training.
And I started out as a classroom teacher.
But the conversations between us, they've made us better educators.
And now we're inviting you into those conversations because learning out loud together changes everything.
So whether you teach students or you train professionals, we believe these conversations can connect us all.
Welcome back to Key Connections for Educators, the podcast where we explore the heart and the hustle behind what it really means to teach and lead today. I'm Hannah Knecht, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nate Key.
We're excited to be back in this conversation and especially pumped for today's episode. This one is special because we're welcoming someone who's actually come full circle from being a fourth grade student in Hannah's class to being an educator herself.
That's right. Today we're sitting down with Sarah Monahan. So glad to have you here today, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
We are too. So Sarah was one of my former students who I had the joy of teaching many years ago. She's now graduated with a degree in elementary education and is pursuing her master's in special education. It's surreal. A full circle moment, and I'm so excited to dive into her journey.
I am too. I think this conversation is going to be a blend of nostalgia and real talk about teaching and hopefully some future-focused inspiration. So I am excited to get into it.
I am too.
Me too.
So I remember Sarah as a spunky, energetic, eager learner in my fourth grade classroom. So Sarah, let's go back a bit. I'd love to hear what led you to pursue a career in education. Were there moments or people along the way, maybe even back in fourth grade, that sparked something in you? What drew you to this field in the first place? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I didn't really know I wanted to be a teacher until high school, but especially when I was in elementary school, I knew I didn't want a normal 9-to-5 desk job. My dad's a pilot, so having a 9-to-5 job wasn't really a thing that we talked about in my house. So I always knew that I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. And then it wasn't until high school I realized how fortunate I was to have such great teachers, and I really wanted to be able to give back to the community.
What does that mean to you?
I just really want to be able to find a place for students to feel understood. And also, I want them to be able to be comfortable asking questions and be able to have fun. I want school to be like a safe place for them.
When I hear you saying safe place and fun, I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there was anything that you were experiencing as a student that made you feel like there was something that could be done differently or better, or maybe you just thought, oh man, if it had been this way, maybe it would have been different for me.
Yeah, there were a lot of times, especially like middle and high school, I was a very misunderstood student. I learn in a very different way than other people do. So I wanted to create a fun and safe environment so they were able to be able to teach all different types of learning styles. I'm not the type of person who wants to create a PowerPoint and flip through a bunch of slides. That's not how I learned. I don't think that's going to be how my elementary students learn. So I like having things that are super interactive, things for them to actually get the gears in their brains turning, things that really resonate with them.
And I remember that even in fourth grade, being just such a hands-on learner and
Yeah.
really wanting to do rather than sit back and watch. It was like you were one of the first people to raise your hand to volunteer, to get involved. You were excited to learn. And I would also say that your peers really influenced that as well. Like you,
For sure, yeah.
I think even in the beginning, you wanted to show up to school probably because it was your social life, but I watched you evolve through fourth grade so that you started to want to come to school because you were hungry. You were eager to learn, eager to participate, eager to really get involved. And I
Yeah.
see that influencing and integrating into your why of why you wanted to bring more of that kinesthetic, that hands-on to those classroom experiences for others.
Yeah, that's definitely I'm a huge hands-on learner. I've always been one.
Can you think of any examples where you felt particularly misunderstood as a student or where you
Okay.
felt particularly engaged? I'd like to hear both of those.
Um, Misunderstood would definitely be my Algebra II class in high school. I was never a great student with math. If I was able to get the concept, I really enjoyed math. But it was really Algebra 2, my teacher would only sit in front of us and tell us what to do. And I had countless meetings with her about how to make my grades better, how to improve and stuff. And she just wasn't grasping that I wasn't someone who could just look and see what she was doing and understand it. I was one who needed to actually be able to do it, maybe with some help, but I needed to actually be able to do it myself. So that was definitely a challenge, but I persevered, I passed the class, so that's all that matters. A class that I really felt engaged with, I took journalism in high school. I was on the yearbook team. My teacher that I worked with, he was really awesome. He let us go out into the field, take pictures, do interviews, really be hands-on with what we were doing, and that's where I realized, okay, I don't hate school. I just really don't like having to sit in a chair all day and listen to people tell me what to do. That's really what it was.
That's awesome. I love that that was a defining moment for you. Was there ever a
Yeah.
defining moment where you were working with a student or working with peers and you thought, wow, I kind of like this teaching aspect? Or did that come later for you?
I would say that came when I was in high school, starting my junior year, I worked at a daycare. My mom would take exercising classes and I would work at the daycare while she was doing it. It was from infants all the way to kids who were probably 10. And a lot of the times I would help them with their homework or they would just want me to read a book to them or practice words and stuff. And that's really where I was like, oh, wow, kids actually really enjoy doing this. And I think that I really enjoy helping them doing this. So. That was mainly what kinda drew me to really liking kids.
I think there's something incredibly redemptive about being able to take your own learning experiences and sit with them and say, this isn't how it should be.
Yeah,
And then to be able to take that and then use that as the catalyst for trying to help other people have that same experience. Because whether you're working with fourth graders or 40-year-olds in my case, people want to feel like they belong and they want to feel like they're able to succeed and not like they're broken or misunderstood just because they learn differently like you did and like I have. And I think that's not just something you teach, that's something you really become. It kind of reminds me of a little of Parker Palmer's idea that we teach who we are. And that story that you shared really reflects beautifully on how you're not just passing on knowledge, but you're really trying to create a space for other people to become themselves. And I think that's
yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Once you decided that this is the path you wanted to take,
Mhm.
you needed to move into a place where you learned about it and became better at it. You started your college journey, student teaching. That's where a lot of that shaping of how you become an educator really takes form and really takes
Yeah.
root. So I want to know about those experiences. What were those like for you? What
Yeah.
shaped you? What formed you there?
The thing that I really enjoyed about it was I was in a room with all like-minded people. That was really awesome. The great thing about being with a bunch of like-minded people was that we were able to talk and nothing would be an argument. And also, we all wanted the same outcome. We wanted to create change and we wanted
Mhm.
to create good classroom environments. So that was really nice. We all were able to collaborate with each other as well, like, especially when we were student teaching and in the field, we were able to come back together as classes and share our experiences, pick things out from, "Oh, I really like the way you did that," or, maybe that's not my type of teaching style." So I really liked being able to do that. I'm a big person with collaboration. I love to collaborate with people. I think that's the best way to fully wrap your mind around things and also get the best bang for your buck. My college professors were all amazing. They wanted to help us become the best teachers that we could be. So they were giving us lots of different ways to teach, lots of different manipulatives to use. One who really stood out to me, my student teaching professor, her name is Mrs. Mead. She was awesome. She is very into teaching reading and writing and all of those foundations. She taught us a lot about things don't come in a day. You can't expect a
Mhm.
kid to learn how to read in a day. You can't expect them to know all of their sounds in a day. They can't count to 100 in a day. So really give them that grace period. Let it resonate in their brains. Teach it to them, let it resonate with them, come back to it. That's really what she taught me. I had another awesome professor. His name was Dr. Thomas. He was my math professor, and he knew I did not enjoy math. He knew that that was not something that Sarah liked to do. So that man really tried to pull things out of me. He was always hands-on with us. He would bring out counting blocks, counting bears. He would bring candy. He would have us draw our lives in math equations. He really put math into a perspective that I've never seen it before. I've always seen math taught on a whiteboard or on a projector or something, and someone just writing out a bunch of equations and teaching them us. I've never had someone be so hands-on with me, especially as a 22-year-old. A lot of my college professors just stood there and talked to us. He really wanted to grasp things out of us and really wanted to take the reins and have us get the biggest bang for our buck.
It sounds like he was modeling a lot of what you eventually want to also showcase as a
He was,
yeah.
and the best part about him is that a lot of the times while I was in my practicum, he would stop by all of our schools and just come in and say hi and see how things were going, meet our students, which made me think, okay, he's not here to just teach us. He actually cares about the people who he's shaping.
I also love that it's the math teacher.
Yeah. It's
Because to
I
your
went
point
into that class
earlier,
I went into that class thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna be the worst hour and 50 minutes of my life," but it was actually the most enjoyable out of all the classes that I was taking that semester.
it's proof positive that not just adult learning theory, but just like learning theory in general, when you have somebody who really understands, it changes everything. And
Yeah.
creative writing, you always think about getting in little groups and a kinesthetic piece of actually putting the story together, and you bind the book in fourth grade. I remember doing that, but to actually have that kinesthetic aspect to math, I think I could have benefited from that.
And it sounds too that he really formed a relationship with you.
Oh, he did. He was awesome. He would send weekly newsletters about what to expect in class, kind of life updates. Every time we would walk into the room, the first 5 minutes of class would just be us catching up with him and talking.
That's huge because it established rapport, so there was a level of trust, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more than just him teaching us. He actually wanted to build relationships with all of his students, which was really awesome.
Did he redeem math for you? I guess that's the big question.
He did a little bit. This is actually crazy. Math is one of my favorite things to teach, which I never thought that I would say that. But yeah, when I was in first grade, math, that was my thing. I love teaching the first graders math. Fifth grade was a little different, but first grade, I really loved teaching math.
That's a great transition into the practicum and the student teaching aspect of what you're doing. One of the greatest places to learn is to actually learn by doing. And so tell us a little bit about that. What are some of the things that surprised you about your student teaching experiences? And what are some things that you felt really prepared for? And
Mhm.
maybe some things that you got into the situation, you're like, "Ooh, I I really need to work on these areas because I wasn't as prepared for student teaching as I thought I'd be."
Yeah. So my first semester of my senior year, we were in our practicum. So practicum was 5 weeks in the classroom. I was in 3rd grade. I was really excited, especially because 3rd grade was definitely one of my favorite grades in elementary school. But I was working at a Title I school. I had never been in a Title I school before, especially growing up in Loudoun County. This really opened my eyes a lot. That placement was challenging. I That's all I can say. It was very challenging. The teacher that I was with, she had very different teaching styles than me. It was really awesome to see how she ran her classroom and the way that she especially did behavior management. And I was able to pick some things out that I really loved, but there were some other things that I really just thought, "This isn't for me. This isn't how I really wanna run my classroom." But with that placement, I was really struggling with behavior management. I soon came to think, "Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to do this. These kids are walking all over me. I can't get them in control." So that was the end of that placement, but when I went into 1st grade, my official student teaching, I was in 1st grade for 8 weeks. It started off with a snowstorm, so we were online for about a week, so I was able to meet some of the kids individually on Google Meet, which was a little weird, but it was funny to see they were, "Who is this random person talking to me?" But that 1st grade placement changed quite literally everything about my teaching style. The teacher that I was with, she was so awesome. She taught me a lot about reflection. I am a big person on reflection now. I was always thinking, how can I improve this lesson to help give the students a better understanding? What behavior strategies work best for the students in the class and myself? That was something that I really had to figure out. And there was always room for improvement. And she made me realize that everyone makes mistakes. She's been a teacher for 13 years. If I made a mistake, the kids weren't going to fail. That's what really opened my eyes. I was always a very anxious person with teaching them because I was like, "Oh my gosh, if I don't know something, things are going down the drain. Their state testing, their scores are gonna be so low." She really taught me that they're kids, they're learning and growing. They know that you're learning and growing too. And it was also nice that they knew that I was a student teacher, so they were a little bit easier on me.
I'm curious about classroom management, even back from 3rd grade. Thinking about what were the strategies that did work, what were the strategies that did not work in regards to you and your personality, and then how did that transfer to the 1st grade class? I'm assuming it at the same school or was it a different?
They were at different
Okay.
schools,
So
so
maybe
I
that
actually forgot
even
to
the
mention
climate was
this.
different there. Okay.
Yeah. So, behavior management in 3rd grade, we used the system called EOS. So, you could get EOS points for positive behavior, you could lose EOS points for negative behavior. I am someone who really thrives off of positive reinforcements. I'm not more so a negative reinforcement person. I feel like that can limit the self confidence of the student if it gets to that point. 1st grade, I did a lot of reteaches. I would never take anything away. I would never take recess away. I would never take fun activities away from a student because having those experiences that really shapes your elementary experience. And I think that it would be bad if I took recess or something away from them. So I would do a lot of reteaches. I would start with a warning. First off, I would set clear expectations before everything that I did. If they were sitting on the carpet, those expectations were set. If they got up and went back to their seats, those expectations remained the same and they were rephrased. So I was big on setting expectations to the point where it was drilled into their brain that they just knew what to do. And if they didn't know what to do, I would give them a subtle reminder and then see if the behavior would change. If the behavior didn't change, then I would say, okay, we have a 5-minute reteach at recess. So they would come during recess. I would say, okay, so this is what our reteach is about. Tell me what you would do differently. What would you do differently next time? Why do you think that this behavior wasn't appropriate? Why do you think that we need to do a reteach? And so then we would talk about it. And sometimes the behavior would change completely the next day, and then the other days, they were just like, "I don't care about sitting 5 minutes at recess," which is fine. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. I never took it to heart, but I was really big on reteaches. That's really what resonated, at least with the 1st graders. The 5th graders were a little bit different, but with the 1st graders, that's definitely what helps them a lot, and by the end of my student teaching, they knew exactly what to do. They knew my expectations, they knew their procedures, they knew how I ran that classroom.
I wanted to know more about reflection and what the
Mhm.
actual process was that you go through for reflection.
What was that process for you?
I wasn't a big person on reflection, I never really had been. I kinda thought, "There isn't really a need for this. What do I need to do? This just seems like more work." But when I went into that 1st grade classroom, she knew that I struggled a lot with behavior management, so she just looked at me and was like, "Okay, when you're watching me teach today. I want you to write down things that you really liked how I taught, and I want you to write down things that you don't know if you use or you don't really like the way that I taught this. So I did that, and then at the end of the day, her and I went over it, and we would just talk about it, and then it was my turn to teach. And while I was teaching, I was just thinking, "Okay, they're not getting the way that I'm speaking. Let me try something else. Let me put a video on, or let me read them a book to see if they'll better grasp it." It was more of like after I was done teaching, I would give them an exit ticket usually and see how it grasped in their minds. If 50% of the class was perfect at it, but then the other 50% was still really confused, I would reteach it the next day, but I would teach it in a different way because I felt like, okay, if they didn't get it the first time with me teaching it this way, then let me try something else. And even the kids who did get it, they'll be able to get a deeper understanding of it. They're not just being thrown in, they're getting a deeper understanding. So that's really how I did a lot of my reflections. Reflection's the best thing to do. It really helped me think, okay, after I was done, I was able to resonate with everything that they said, every question that they had, especially with their questions. After I was done, I was able to think about their questions, and then the next day, I was able to find answers for them. So I was trying to never really leave them hanging with the questions, especially if I didn't know the answer right away. Like, some of the questions they would ask me would be like, I have no idea. Like, this is the craziest question I've ever heard. So I'd be able to look it up and see how I would be able to put it in the minds of a first grader. So reflection was really a lot about figuring out what works best for them, but also what works best for me. I wasn't really trying to beat myself to the ground over answering a kid's question, but it really helped that they would get their questions answered.
So you started with third grade Title One, really difficult classroom management experience.
Mhm.
You moved on to first grade, which may be a little bit easier because they were first graders, but also because you had a partner teacher who was able to teach you reflection and hopefully gave you some really great expectation setting techniques and really helped you practice that. But you alluded that fifth grade was then hard again. And so I'd like to hear about what happened. So you have these experiences and now I heard the foreshadowing that was
Uh-huh.
difficult again. Tell
Yeah.
us about that.
So the school that I was teaching at was a magnet school and also had open complex classrooms. So it was like this giant room and it was 4 different classrooms and you could see them, you could hear them. I walked in scared to death, but I loved it so much. It brought so much collaboration towards team members. Instead of my 23 first graders, I was able to meet 96 first graders and was able to work with them. So I really liked the open complex idea. But when I went into 5th grade, same school, same open concept, it's still Title One. I walked in and half of those students were taller than me. I looked like I was the new student walking into that class. Some of the admin, I would walk them through the hallways and people would think that I was one of the students in the classroom. So it was hard. First, what I really didn't realize with 5th grade is before you start with teaching and managing, you need to build relationships with them. I didn't realize that at all when I first started. And I would think back and be like, why aren't they listening to me? Like they hate me. They aren't listening to me. But once I started to build those relationships with them, that's where it really started to change. That 5th grade class was really hard. I was breaking up fights. I was being cursed at. I had things thrown at me, but having all of those things happen to me didn't make me wanna give up on them. It made me wanna go to the root issue and inspire them to maybe, "Okay, let's not act out on violence," or maybe don't use those words when you're talking to someone. So, that management was a little different because instead of, "Oh, Billy stood up without raising his hand," it was more of, "Oh, he just cursed me out because he didn't wanna do this assignment." So it was more of like, "Okay, let me think of a different way." I obviously can't do reteaches of them, they don't care. So it was more of, "Okay, let me think about what is causing this." So that actually made me get super, super close with those students, and I was able to find out some root causes and we were able to work through them. And a lot of them, they surprised me by the end of the school year.
Can you, without naming names, could you go into maybe a specific success story where you had an issue, you were able to build some rapport, build that trust in the relationship, and then watched as the student overcame?
I had this one student, I had already heard about her before I even started student teaching. She is the name in the entire school. Everyone knows who she is. She was also I looked up at her. She was so much taller than me. She had really, really bad behavior issues. So her desk was quite literally right next to mine. We sat next to each other. And I didn't know what to do at first. I didn't know what made her act out like this. But then as the year went on, I started to learn more and more about her. She had a really awful home life. And a lot of the time, she just felt like there was no one there for her. So I became that person who was there for her. And seeing her be able to get excited about learning, especially math was something that she hated. But I sat next to her during every single math lesson. And if the teacher who was teaching didn't let her, like she wasn't able to grasp it, then I would reteach it to her and we would do things together. And there was one day they were reviewing and I was sitting there reviewing with her. And at the end, they were taking a assignment. And at the beginning, she was a little nervous about taking this assignment. She didn't want to take it. She knew she was going to fail it. And I just was like, you're not going to fail it. Think about all of this work that we have done this past week together, and you've been able to grasp this concept. Don't think about it being a test. Don't think that we're testing you. I just want you to do these problems and see what happens. And she got 100% on the assessment. It was really, she just really needed someone to be there for her and needed someone to understand what she was going through. And I was able to be that person.
I'm hearing
Yeah,
that. And even just showing up every day.
exactly.
And it sounds like also giving her some of that personalized attention because she didn't get
Mhm.
any of that at home. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A lot of those students in the class, they were so attached to me because they realized like, "Oh my gosh, she actually really cares." Like, I don't see that a lot. She actually really cares about us. So, by the end of that student teaching experience, I was distraught leaving them and they were distraught leaving me, which is crazy because when I first got there, I was like, "These kids hate me." But it was a complete full circle moment and it was awesome.
I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
What a conversation with Sarah. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, seriously, there's so many insights, stories, real talk moments. There's just no way we were going to cram all of that into one episode without a risk that you'd miss something that was really good. So this is where we're going to hit pause. Part 2 is coming up, and that's where Sarah's going to take us into an even deeper understanding of her teaching journey as a student teacher. So there's some surprises, challenges, insights, moments that shaped her as an educator. You're not going to want to miss it.
But before you go, hit like, subscribe, and turn on that bell so you know the instant part 2 drops. And tell us in the comments what's one moment from today's episode that stuck with you. We can't wait to hear your take. See you in part 2.